Hey friends, we're here with another lo-fi Let's Play with me, Lee Alexander. This one that we've got this week is a little bit weird because prior to playing it just earlier today, I'd never heard of it before in my life. It's called Man-Eng, Master of Evil, Chang Brothers Software, copyright 1983. And what I thought was interesting about this particular game is that it's very pure. I think some of the games that we had been looking at lately made a good case for the fact that maybe graphics were confusing in the parser-based text environment, but in this one, it's very, very pure, so I thought it would be a good time for us to sort of demonstrate some adventure game puzzle solving. So right there from the opening screen, I've learned something, that I can trust the directions as I see them on the screen. If you recall, let's take this goblet, by the way. If you recall, during our playthrough of Mystery House, it was a bit confusing because north wasn't right in front of you, and a doorway to the left of the screen wasn't always west, necessarily. So already I typed west, I entered this tavern, and oops, I found a goblet, and apparently it's just filled with water, so hopefully nobody will mind if I take it. Now let's do a little test. Look, table. See what it says? Leave the table alone. So it's a bit sophisticated. It can account for some environmental objects, even though we can trust that unless something is denotated by the text, that we don't really need to worry about it. So now this path to the right we know is east. Here we are. We're in a bazaar. There's a gold coin here. It's so good when people go shopping and they leave their money on the ground. So we can take the coin. And let's assume that we can enter this tent by typing east. So look, tent. It's nice always when you start a new game, especially this type of game, to press the boundaries of the level of observation that the game will expect you to attain in order to solve it. But already, just by testing out the tent and by messing with the table, we do know that basically if something's important, the parser's probably going to tell us. Let's see what we're carrying. That's also a good opening move for an adventure game. All we have is what we've picked up so far, so we don't have any extra supplies. But it's very nice to go through half of a game afraid of the dark, only to find you've been carrying a lantern all along. Oh, you're inside a mystic's tent. There is a wizard here. Wow, he's quite a wizard. Let's have a look at him. Oh, so now you know when the screen goes black, there's going to be a wall of text. Before you can do anything, the wizard interrupts and says, "At last you've arrived to our kingdom, bravest of adventurers. Only your greatness can save us now." So we're apparently a great adventurer. A black cloud has hung over our fair land ever since Man-Eng, Master of Evil, wow, this game is named after that guy, and cousin to the imperial throne, betrayed and slaughtered the royal family. He has made a pact with the demon Zonder, whose magic is strong. Travel to Man-Eng's tower, you must, oh, he's Yoda now, and free us from his grip of darkness. Kafka will prevent you from pitfalls. Now go on your way, and may the goddess Laura bless you. Okay, it's common that you can type look to bring yourself back to the, oh, please use 2 words, talk wizard, to see if he has anything else to say. And the wizard yells, "What are you still doing here, you dolt? Get out there and go adventuring." Okay, I get the hint. No tea, no companionship. I see, you want us to get right to the point. As I said, I don't know anything about this game, and my research really brought me up empty-handed, which was kind of exciting because in the days when I used to have to solve these games as a kid, you know, I didn't have access to internet and game facts and text files and all those helpful resources that allow me to do this research for these Let's Plays now. But so far, so good, pretty straightforward. You know, let's just do a little test. Can't go in that direction, so we can trust that if there's a path on this game, those are the available directions. Sometimes it's not the case. I like really good constraints in adventure games because it limits the amount of times that you're going to be confused. If it's very clear what you can and can't do, everything is sort of left up to your mind to do. And here we have a bat. There is a stone here. The bat spits on you. Wow, why? Talk bat? This guy's going to be a problem for me. The bat says you're a scumbag. Well, let's get that stone. Let's give that bat what for, shall we, friends? It's not nice to say mean things to people that you don't know, even if you're in their forest. I'll take you down, buddy. We're going to throw the stone. Again, that seems pretty straightforward, an easy puzzle to start out with. Wonder what the advantage of defeating the bat is. Well, the injured bat flaps wildly and falls while gasping his final word, Crom. Okay, so now we know two magic words in this cursed land. They are Kafka and Crom, and I expect they'll come in handy pretty soon. So now, let's try taking this bat. Never know when a dead bat could come in handy. Actually, you do know when a dead bat could come in handy, because, you see, as we enter this forest, the game says something very forbidding and important to us, which is you're lost in the forest. And if you're playing a traditional adventure game and you're told that you're lost, that means for sure that you've entered a maze. And solving mazes in adventure games can be interesting because puzzles of this era very popularly, ever since Zork really, do not correspond to real directions. So there is a correct path through, but there's not going to be a logical use of space here. For example, I can tell you now that if I were to press south, I would not again be at the entrance to the woods. I have no choice but to solve this maze now. Luckily, I have the traditional manual with me, made by Bob Redrup. I cite it in this work a lot, but he has an entire chapter on strategy for mastering twisty little passages style mazes in adventure games. Believe it or not, mazes that have no logical directional layout were quite the rage back then. So what you do, actually, to solve these is you drop your inventory and you use it as a marker. Now, it would take me a long time to show you how I solved this, but, you know, for example, if we head west, we're going to find a landmark. And when you find certain landmarks, the same thing will happen. For example, if I reach the bank of the Wine River, wow, let me tell you, I'd like to stop here, but we have a goblet. I think that's what it's for. So let's type fill goblet. And presumably we just dump out the water that was in there. You know, let's not drink the wine today because you never know what we may use the wine for. So we've reached this landmark, and while going north or south may get me lost again, you know, from a landmark, the same direction always leads to the same place. So I've sort of memorized my way through this, but if you ever find yourself playing a vintage adventure game, you can drop an object and figure out what happens when you go different directions from that object, because they will be consistent even if they're not logical. Each scene is kind of its own section, and I'm not as good at explaining this as Mr. Redrup, but dropping things and then testing whether you can find your way back to them will help you figure out the cardinal logic of the maze. You're at the base of a large tree. It just looks like it's an invitation to climb, doesn't it? So let's give that a try. The tree yells, "Ouch, get off of me, you twit." Wow, it's a talking tree. Let's see what else he has to say. Oh, talk to the tree. And, oh, the tree says, "I am Man-Eng, last surviving member of the royal family. Man-Eng hated me most of all and destined me to this fate worse than death." I think Man was jealous that Dawn got like an actual person's name instead of just Man. "My fate has filled me with hatred, and I have no time to waste on a silly fool such as you. Now be gone." All right, well, fine then. Okay. So if we continue, we reach a clearing, and this clearing serves as a crucial landmark in the maze because this game hasn't actually provided us with enough objects yet to do the full mapping by dropping them all. So luckily, when you're by the clearing, it's always going to basically be the same. I think anytime I go east of this clearing, I encounter this Viking. So he looks very forbidding, but, you know, I've been playing a lot of Crusader Kings 2 lately, and I've learned a thing or two about Vikings from it, I think. So let's try to give the wine. You know, seems like a peace offering for this stern and blue-eyed man. The Viking graciously accepts your gift and gives you a warm fur pelt. So just by the descriptor warm, we probably know that we would need this pelt to protect us from cold, so why don't we wear it, even though it's not particularly cold yet. And through the course of my hard work mapping, I've learned that going north from the Viking always brings us back to this here clearing. So these maps are logical, sort of. You know, they have rules that are consistent. It's not random, but it's not sensible, and they can be very tricky to solve if you don't know how. So thanks to Mr. Redrup's Adventure Gaming Manual for Adventure Gamer's Manual for laying down the tips that are helping me get through these vintage games to this day. So here we are at an ancient temple. Why don't we try making an offering? Try to offer the coin that we're holding. I tried offering the wine before, but it doesn't do anything. So, looks like our offering is going to be accepted. Here we meet a new figure. An apparition suddenly appears. Yes, well, apparitions do that, don't they, friends? The goddess Laura says, "Your loyalty to me shall be rewarded." Okay, she places something around your neck and says, "This will help you on your mission, brave one." Then with a brilliant flash of light, she disappears. Okay. How about that? So I think we go east of the temple for our next step. Yes, you know, it's very satisfying when what seems like an irrational and random space is solved by you, the player. I think we can be very proud of ourselves, don't you? Why don't we enter this cave? I have a hunch that the amulet that was given to us by the goddess Laura is what allows us to see in this cave, because normally you just don't go in a cave without a light in adventure games. That's a Rule 1 type thing, but we can see there's a pit. Why don't we take a chance on entering it, and hope that we can back out if we're wrong about the amulet. Okay, so far so good. Here you can see the pit is above us. Here's some nice brown stalagmites, and the tunnel looks to be ahead, so because we can trust the graphics in this game, we can go north. So you see, I haven't done any, stalactites or stalagmites. I forget which one is the ceiling and which is the floor. But see, I don't know how to look at a stalactites. This game is very free of extraneous objects, and while it makes it, you know, this game is probably, I've never heard of it because it is very simple, thanks to the wild innovations that were being made at the time. It does remind me, there was a much more sophisticated contemporary that involved deposing an evil sorcerer and getting the help of a wizard and learning some magic words, and it was called Ring Quest. And this looks to me like a derivation or an also-ran to Ring Quest. There's a skeleton here. It's holding a sword. Again, I think we can use our intuition, and this is not someone that I want to try to mess with. Let's see if he's alive. Talking to the skeleton might find out. We might find out if it's a wow, you hear rustling noises behind you. I think that tells me that we haven't got much time to waste here. What is that? I mean, I'm going to guess that this is a sign. I've played enough of these things to know that it's a sign and not an air conditioning vent, because we're, you know, that would be an anachronism. But let's have a read of this sign. That king who worships these, that king he finds doom. These what? Wow, that seems to be a riddle. I wonder. Let's take the sword. See if we're allowed to have it. I suspect not. The skeleton won't let go of it. Well, at times like this, why don't we try some of our magic words? Let's try Crom. As you remember, the bat said it as he fell to his death. Oh, that's going to do something. Will it be good? Ah. Oh. Hey, looks like the skeleton releases the sword and it magically floats up towards you. Wow, I love when things work out, don't you? I think we can have this sword, but I also think we don't want to linger any longer in this cave. You know, I would like to stick around and see what would happen, and I've been an irresponsible adventure game tutor to you, because obviously you should save before trying anything eminently risky, like trying to mess with a skeleton. It would have served me right if we'd all just died and lost all our progress. That's always disappointing, you know, when I'm recording a video and something goes horribly wrong, but, you know, maybe I should just roll with it. Maybe you will be a more intrinsic part of my adventure game experience that way, if you experience some of the frustrations that I experience. Again, I've talked about this before, but when I do these videos, I like to research some, but not too much, because then, you know, you'll just be watching me play through something I've already memorized. I did solve the maze, but, you know, I wanted to be able to show you how I solved it, but that mapping process, I think, would have not been entertaining, and we wouldn't have gotten to see as much of this beautiful world as possible. I'm going to try to include some information about mapping adventure game spaces on the post that I'll be doing for Rock, Paper, Shotgun. So if you're seeing this video, let's see, which way do I go? West? If you're seeing this, no, north. If you're seeing this video through my YouTube channel, do go and check out the Lo-Fi Let's Play tab on, and there's our bat friend. He seems to have moved. Oh yeah, because we dropped him. On RPS, and you'll be able to see some of the mapping stuff that I'm going to try to carry on Mr. Redrup's legacy of teaching you about. And look, you know, we've made it out. I think it's a good time to save our game. Yeah, it's interesting because the logic mazes were a really good way of adding longevity to games that were really not all that substantial, either due to data constraints or, you know, people experimenting with the form, perhaps. So it was a way of, you know, sort of giving the player a brain teaser to sort of pad out their experience with the storytelling and the puzzle solving. So our game has saved. I think, you know, we're ready to move on. So let's go and see what else this domain has to offer. So you're walking down the icelands. This must be what our fur pelt is for. Let's check our inventory, just double check that that's being worn. Yep, our large sword, our medallion, and our animal pelt. Don't know what kind of animal, but, you know, I think it's don't ask, don't tell when it comes to Viking animal pelts. I'm just going to be grateful for the warmth, aren't you? We're walking down the icelands. I didn't know that ice could just spring up at the edge of a forest like this. How interesting. And we found a path. Let's just do a little... I think we've learned that objects like this are just decorative, but we do a little check just to make sure. The boulder is of no interest to you, so this game has actually gone a little bit of an extra mile, providing some responses for objects that seem to be commonly of interest to players. Alright, and moving on. Just exploring that arm to the north. This path is just winding around through the valley on the other side of the icelands, and I find it really peaceful when we move from one screen to the next and those white clouds just sort of draw themselves into the sky, and these beautiful images just materialize before you. There is a 7-foot Amazon here. Wow, I wonder if she's nice. Talk Amazon. She seems great. I like her. The Amazon shakes your hand with her vice-like grip and says, "Hail, warrior, these be troubled times we live in." Let's see. I'm going to have a hunch that she might like to have the sword. That maybe we don't need... I mean, I wonder how we're going to be slaying Man-Eng, but perhaps her amulet will be of help. Ah, she's accepted the sword. It looks quite nice on her, doesn't it? The grateful Amazon says, "Thank you, adventurer, for your gift. In return, I shall give you my rope." Thank you. That's very generous of her. Oh, I'm already carrying it. Wow, that was a really simple transaction, and it doesn't look like there are other directions to go in, so let's continue exploring this valley, see what else is going on around here. You know, I'm pretty interested in this one, honestly. And we've been able to make a lot of progress in a short amount of time. Oh, look at those white clouds drawing themselves. That's just lovely, isn't it? I wonder what it'll take for us to defeat Man-Eng. Oh, it seems we've come to a dead end. Look, rocks, maybe? Is that a cliff? That doesn't look like, I don't know how to look at rocks. Okay, maybe let's not mess around here for a while. It looks clearly like the end of the path, but luckily I don't think we've exhausted all of our exploration options. But yeah, for me, the interesting thing about this is that the graphics ultimately serve the experience. They are, you know, pretty. You know, look at all this texture and the skies and the shading on the boulder. But they don't misinform or confuse you, which, you know, this game may be simple and humble, but sometimes, you know, sticking to what you're good at is good in game design, and not trying to be overambitious and making sure that, you know, maybe it's good to only have a few elements to avoid confusing your players. And continuing on these beautiful pathways here, off into the distance. Wow, how about that? You're on the edge of the cliff. There is a rock here. Alright, let's just make sure we've seen everything before we try to climb down. You know, we were told to use the word Kafka should we encounter any pitfalls, And I'm wondering what'll happen in that case. Should we see any pitfalls? Let's go north this time. See what we can find. You're in front of a tree overhanging a tar pit. I wonder if this tree is alive. Let's climb up that one. Alright, let's see. I want to go in the tar pit, but I'm betting that we're allowed to use these dead branches for the sake of, to what? One word. Tree? Bob Redrup always advised that you check your weight and that you drop anything that you don't need when you're trying to do things like climb ropes on dead trees. But fortunately, these later games were a bit more forgiving than the pure text adventures of the Zork age. Those did, they wouldn't let you fit through holes if you were carrying too many items. They wouldn't let you, carry heavy treasures if you were already carrying too many things. So there was a lot of puzzles involving your own size and how many things you could carry, and that was an additional consideration that traditional adventurers often had to have that later, just a few years later, we rarely did because maybe it was too fussy. Can we go in the pit? Let's see. I hope that we can get back up with our rope friends. We are getting to the end of our time, but it would be really inglorious if our adventure ended here. Let's take the bone. There is a rope dangling above you, thank goodness. It would be so disappointing to drown in this pit. Let's see, can we climb the rope? We should take it out of the tree. Climb rope. Yes, please. Alright, everybody, we're being hauled out of the tar pit, I think. And we should untie the rope and take it with us. Well done, everybody. I'm just, these adventure games sort of remind me about why I fell in love with games to begin with. They take you to other worlds and they ask you to really use your head and to really think about language. Again, in the Adventure Gamer's Manual, when I was researching mazes today, Mr. Redrup was attuned to tiny clues in his environment, such as, you're in a troll cave. You see an axe and it says, there's a forbidding hole leading to another passage. And just, according to Mr. Redrup, just the use of the word forbidding let him know that he'd better be prepared to enter that space. Let's save the game. So, he was in the habit of dropping anything he didn't need before entering perilous spaces, but he always knew what kind of spaces were likely to require the lantern. He said, the axe is here and I could take that, but, I've seen an elvish sword defeat a troll just now, so maybe it's not going to do me any good against the characters that are still left alive in this dungeon. So, again, I say this all the time, but there's a huge misconception that these games are just kind of crude and not smart. But they really are. You just need to know what words to think, what words to use, how to talk to them, and how they work. Can we tie the rope to the rock? Let's see. Down. Is this going to hold us? Climb down. And we can see the tower in the distance. And I'm going to end our adventure together here. You're facing an ominous tower. There is a rope dangling behind you. Well, isn't it exciting? We've found our way here. We've solved so many of the puzzles, and now all that's ahead is Man-Eng and I hope. There could be another maze in the castle, but I'll try to solve that on my own, and I hope you do too. If you go to virtualapple.org and you look in the M section of the Apple II discs, you'll be able to play Man-Eng for yourself. And, I did show you the solution for the maze, but why don't you try to solve it yourself. Use the stone and the bat and kind of test your way through the woods and find out what directions consistently lead to what spaces. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here today. I love doing Lo-Fi Let's Plays here with you, and look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care.